Hi, so in this video, we include a new behavior of the dragon, which is basically when the player enters into the proximity, it starts roaring. So before roaring, it will be in an idle state, which basically looks at the player wherever he moves around. And once you enter the roar state, the dragon enters into combat and it's no more in the idle state. So we create a folder. Let's name this essentials. Let's create a blueprint class of type actor and name this boundary underscore BP. We then add a sphere collision and set the radius of this sphere collision to 1000 units. Now we need to draw the sphere collision. So let's trace it by channel in the event tick method. Drag the sphere. We'll then get its world position. And then drag it to the start. We then get the sphere's radius and then set it to the radius of the trace channel. Set the debug to for one frame, debug type. And then when we play it, we can see the sphere collisions debug type in the world. Now we'll just break the link of the event tick because we don't need that debug. Let's open our blueprint behavior tree and let's open the blackboard and then add a new boolean variable called IsAwake. Save this file. Now let's go to our controller class and then create a new method in the controller class which is set awake. This is a U function, which means it can be called from a blueprint. So let's have a input parameter of awake, and as I told, it's a U function. Let's name it blueprint callable in the brackets, which means it can be called from the blueprint. And then we'll add a category AI. So in the CPP file, we create this set awake method. We get the blackboard component. Then we set a blackboard value of type of name. The name should be equal to the name present in the blackboard, that is awake, and then we give the boolean value of awake. We pass in the boolean value awake to it. We'll then go to the blueprint and in sphere, we'll click on component begin overlap. So we'll drag the other actor and we'll cast it to a third person character. If this casting is successful, then we move ahead and get actor of class, which is our dragon underscore BP. This searches for a class named dragon underscore BP in the world, and then it gets its AI's controller. We then cast this AI controller to a dragon AI controller. Once that's done, we call the set awake method which we previously created with the awake value as true. Let's compile and save this. Now we go back to our behavior tree class and add a new decorator, which is blackboard. We then choose IsAwake in the blackboard key and we check if it is set. We then drag the face player which we had created in the previous video, which is a service, to this particular sequence. Now from the root, call the selector, and if it is set, this particular sequence will run. Let's create another sequence for IsAwake which is not set. Sorry, which is set. The previous one was not set. If it is not set, then we look for the player running around in the world. And if it is set, we call this particular sequence. Now let's create a new task. This will be a blueprint task. We'll create a new folder called tasks. And inside that task, we'll create a BT task, which is BT task underscore play animation. So once the task is created, we need to override a function which is receive execute AI. We need from the control pawn, we can cast it to a dragon underscore pp. And then we call play anim montage. This basically plays a montage. And then we finish the execute task. This is mandatory to finish the task to success and set it to success. So we'll create a public variable which is an anim montage. And we'll name this animation. Now we call this particular task which we created. We don't have any animation montages created, so we go to our content folder. We create a new folder called montages. And then we go to our dragon folder and look for the particular animation which we can use to trigger it when the dragon is awake. So we'll use this particular animation. Let's duplicate this and use it in our project. Right click on this animation and create anim montage. We'll name this dragon roar underscore montage. Let's set the animation to dragon roar underscore montage. And we'll give the node name as play roar animation. We'll wait for 5 seconds. Let's go back to our dragon underscore anim bp and then create a new default slot. we'll add the default slot to this particular anim BP. This will help us show the animation of any character which we are animating. So now once we enter the radius, the dragon roars. Let's move our character in front of the dragon. So as you can see, the dragon roars once we enter the radius of the character of the dragon. But it looks like it's roaring every time we enter the radius. So we just need it to roar once, and we need to start the combat behavior after it starts roaring. Let's create a new boolean variable in the blackboard and name it roar. So coming to our behavior tree, we need to add another decorator which is of blackboard type, where we set the blackboard key to roar and is not set. So when the roar is not set and when it is not awake, we run this particular roar animation. Now I'll show an example of creating a task in C++. Let's go to our content browser, create a new C++ class of type bt task underscore blackboard behavior, blackboard base. So we'll name this blackboard class inside a folder called tasks. So previously I showed you how to make it in Blueprint, and in this method I am doing it through C++, that is through code. So both the methods are similar. It's just that with the code you will have more handle on a particular task compared to a Blueprint. In this C++ class, we create a constructor, and then we have a uProperty edit anywhere, which is value. So we set this value for this particular blackboard. So let's have another protected variable, which is the execute task. So this basically executes the task, which is similar to the overridden method of execute AI. Let's go to the C++ class and create the constructor where we set the node name as set blackboard value. We then use the execute task with two parameters, that is the owner component and node memory. So we'll get the owner component's blackboard component, that is basically the AI controller's blackboard component, and we use set value as bool with the get selected blackboard key. This is basically the blackboard key which we have selected in this particular task. We get that particular string value and set it to true. We return it as successful. So basically we take the particular key component and we set the blackboard value to true. Before moving forward, we need to change the build file of this particular project to include tasks. So let's go to the Dragon AI tutorial.build.cs and add a new value called gameplay tasks in the dependency. Let's compile this code. Once compiled successful, we go back to our behavior tree and we use the new created set blackboard value. We choose the blackboard key as roar, which is basically the roar is set. So once the roar is set, we get in combat mode and the dragon is no more idle. And this particular sequence will start running. Let's see if this resolves the issue of the dragon roaring again and again. So now, as you can see, we enter the perimeter and the dragon roars. And this doesn't repeat, it's just once. And if you see the behavior tree, you see that the last sequence is running. In the next video, we'll look into implementing the behavior when the dragon enters into combat mode. Thank you.